Malcolm made his first error at that point because he heard something about his teacher. And the protocol is either leave it alone or go to his teacher. Malcolm X in New York had a captain, Captain Yusuf Shaw. One of the reasons their relationship wasn't great, in 1956, 1957, a rumor was spread in Mosque number 7 in Harlem about Malcolm and women. And Yusuf Shaw, Captain Joseph at the time, did not bring it to Malcolm. Malcolm found out, Malcolm punished Captain Joseph on the principle that you heard a rumor and you failed to come to me about it. And it was involving women. And so Malcolm penalized Captain Joseph. Now, by the same principle, when Malcolm heard what were rumors at this time, he should have went to his teacher. He did not. What did Malcolm do? Malcolm went to the women. 3 of the women. Malcolm went to the women. He heard that these women are the messenger's wives. It was always wives, even for Malcolm. We'll get to that. He heard that these women, whom he knew, were wives of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And instead of going to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he went to the wives, each of them, 3 of them, and questioned them. Then, did he go? See, that was violation number 1.
So they were wives?
Absolutely, they were wives.
Oh, okay.
And we'll get to that. They absolutely were wives. But Malcolm was in grave violation by how he handled that. But because of his personal relationship or sentiment regarding the sisters, he violated the same protocol that he punished Captain Joseph for. The same, not the same year, but not too far earlier. So what then does Malcolm do? He goes to Wallace. This is how it happened. He goes to Wallace, the son. And he presumes to reveal this to Wallace. Wallace's response was, I know. So Malcolm said Wallace brought it to him. That was a fabrication. That was later part of it. We'll get to why Malcolm took that route. All of the rubber hit the road June 1964, not March 1964. The ugliness started. The Rubicon River was crossed in June 1964. Everything was different. We will demonstrate. Everything was different prior to June 1964. We'll get that. But we're so far from that. We're in December 1962.
Yeah.
Not only did Malcolm hear rumors, he's confirmed the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad had taken wives. He went to them, violation. He goes to Wallace, violation.
Now, is the violation because they're his wives and that's his child?
No. Well, that violation is in there. but the same violation for which he punished Captain Joseph.
Right. Yeah.
See, in our restrictive law, we don't engage in slack talk. So when, by law, that's why he was able to penalize Captain Joseph, because that was in violation to our restrictive law. And so non-Muslims, you can't understand this situation. You can't properly judge it, most importantly, unless you put it in the context of our way. That Malcolm was integral to, and the way was integral to Malcolm. So the principal, when he heard a rumor, he should have took it right to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. When he took it to anybody else other than the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he was in violation of the same restrictive law that Captain Joseph was, that Malcolm was the enforcer of. And then on top of that, he goes to visit the women, the wives, secretly visit the wives of his teacher? No, that was a gross violation. So he does that. Then he goes to Wallace. And then when Wallace said, I know, then Malcolm writes the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
What's he say?
I'm gonna get to that. He writes the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The messenger says and shares what he heard. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad tells him, he will talk to him in Arizona. In between that letter and the meeting with the messenger, Malcolm, this is extremely important. God is in the details. See, the reason this mess can go so far and wide and be so emotionally charged is because folks don't have the details. After the letter Malcolm finally wrote to his messenger, and before the meeting with his messenger to discuss it, Malcolm goes back to Wallace. And according to Malcolm, see, this is critical. He and Wallace do what? They go through the scripture. It's critical. Malcolm X and Wallace Muhammad go through the scripture, identifying the prophets and messengers of God who had multiple wives. Now, this is real critical. Malcolm and Wallace are doing this. Why? Because Malcolm is the context. Malcolm knew that we're dealing with a messenger of God. So the criterion by which a messenger of God is judged is not American law. It's not Western tastes or tendencies. The criterion by which the behavior of a messenger of God is judged is the scripture. And so Malcolm and Wallace are going through the scriptures and tallying up all of the messengers of God, all of whom had multiple wives. Abraham, Moses, Solomon, David, after God's own heart. Prophet Muhammad, messenger of God, 9 wives, as the most honorable Elijah Muhammad took 9 wives. So Wallace and Malcolm are going through the scripture, and Malcolm leaves feeling very good. So the meeting happens, and because he knows that his messenger is acting in accord with his role as messenger of God. Malcolm understood it. Wallace understood it. Now, you mentioned, you rightly, you keep giving it to Spike Lee's movie X. Rightly so. There's a couple of key scenes that I too will deconstruct. And everyone should know that that movie closes, at least, maybe opens to, with the disclaimer that scenes and characters have been fictionalized for dramatic purposes. And a very damaging and devilish fictionized scene is this. There's a scene in that movie where Malcolm, the meeting, he meets with the messenger in his home. The issue of his domestic life comes up. And the movie has the messenger justifying to Malcolm his domestic life by invoking scripture and invoking the prophets. That is a lie. It's a devilish lie, and you should not only know it's a lie, but know the truth of what happened, because it's so relevant to everything that developed. So after going back to Wallace, and they scan the scriptures and realize to their own satisfaction, certainly to Malcolm's satisfaction, that the messenger's life is the life summation of all of the messengers and prophets that preceded him. Malcolm now goes to, in April of 63, Malcolm now has the meeting with the messenger in Phoenix. This grossly misrepresented in Spike Lee's movie. Malcolm X tells us precisely how that meeting went. Malcolm enters the palace in Phoenix. They, after walking onto the pool area, Mr. Muhammad says to his student, "Well, son, what's on your mind?" Immediately, Malcolm tells him what he's hearing, and before the messenger can say anything, the messenger don't say nothing. After telling the messenger what he's hearing, Malcolm says, he explains how he said, without waiting for a response, Malcolm explains that he and Wallace had found documentation for his life in the prophecy. Malcolm commences to running off the domestic life of the prophets and messengers, them damnable liars who wrote the script of that movie that made the messenger invoke those histories to justify his deeds. That's a damn lie. Malcolm not allowing his messenger to even respond to the rumors. He said, Wallace and I, the apostle, we found the documentation. He starts running the domestic life of the messengers. And the most honorable Elijah Muhammad's words to him were simply, son, I'm not surprised. You've always had such a good understanding of prophecy and spiritual things. Mm-hmm. That's how that meeting went. Mm-hmm. Malcolm was real grounded, and Wallace were well grounded in the knowledge of what we're dealing with here. Malcolm brought the scriptural defense to the messenger. Not that he needed it, but he's letting the messenger know, I understand. And the messenger confirmed only, yeah, I'm not surprised. Did you understand? Malcolm left that meeting in April of 1963 with his faith in his teacher stronger than ever. There ain't no spiritual crisis here. Right. There ain't no moral conflict here. It don't exist. This is April 1963. It don't not exist. Malcolm, he didn't met with wives. He didn't met with the messenger. Didn't met with Wallace. He's good, except not so much. Mm-hmm. There was an aspect that did trouble him. And it had nothing to do with the fact that his messenger had 9 wives, because he understood that perfectly. Mm-hmm. He had no qualms with the messenger of God having wives. It was Malcolm's personal affinity with 3 of them in particular, those 3 that he visited, that was an obstacle, an emotional obstacle that Malcolm proved not able to overcome. But look what happens.
What do you mean by that, though? Like he was romantically involved?
Malcolm, no, I'm not saying that. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to respect the sisters because they're still here. So I'm not going to go further than I need to go. Mm-hmm. Except to reject that. No, that absolutely is not what I'm saying. But Malcolm did know the 3 that he visited, and he felt a way about their being the wives of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, and that is the aspect that Malcolm never really overcame. It wasn't the wives thing. He got that. He good at that. Mm-hmm. And we know he good because he left the messenger, his black messenger, with his 9 wives and went following behind the Arabs with their 100 wives. So, no, it wasn't the wives. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the 9 wives that were the problem. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, it was the 3 wives that were the problem. But moving on. So this meeting happens. Mm-hmm. He and Malcolm face to face on the matter. What does Malcolm do? What does the messenger do? Does the messenger say, oh, I got to shut him up? He knows too much. See, this is the narrative. Mm-hmm. That's a Carl Levin's narrative. That's the Zach Kondo narrative. I got to silence him. What happens? They done had this meeting. In the fall of 1963, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is in Philadelphia. He introduces, does he try to silence Malcolm because he knows too much? Want to put a muzzle on him so he doesn't share what he knows? No, in fact, he made Malcolm X the first national minister in Philadelphia, fall of 1963. And in introducing Malcolm, the messenger says to the audience of Malcolm, this is my most faithful, hard-working minister. He will follow me till he dies. Malcolm says of this, he had never paid such a compliment to any Muslim. See, they good. Not that Malcolm isn't harboring, and he is, but the messenger is good. The messenger didn't quiet him. He gave him the bigger platform to represent him. But Malcolm is harboring, and Malcolm is working against the minister. The messenger.
Okay. So this is all still 1963. And so it seems like the third and final straw that ultimately leads to his departure is in November 1963, John F. Kennedy is assassinated. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad tells Malcolm X to not mention his name. No? Okay. So, well, I'll go over and then you can dispel everything as you know it. So he tells Malcolm X to not speak directly on John F. Kennedy because, it's going to be a big issue. Malcolm X hosts a lecture, and he does something different this time. He never opens it up for questions, but he decides to open it up for question, and then he indirectly speaks about John F. Kennedy, and as a result, then
He indirectly speaks about John F.
Yeah. He indirectly speaks about John F. Kennedy, and then he gets silenced for 90 days by order of the messenger himself.
So, first, there's one more before we get to November.
Okay. So we got one more step in between?
Yeah, it's real.
There's a lot of
Real
information.
Critical.
I even heard from when student minister Nuri Muhammad was talking that with the Alex Haley's book, I think there's like 13 to 15 chapters that are missing from the autobiography.
There's three chapters.
Oh, three chapters that are missing.
Yeah.
That's a big jump ahead. But three. But still, there's a lot of information where it's hard to always synthesize it. So yeah, let's definitely backtrack then.
So, no, I'm getting here. Let's start there. President Kennedy is assassinated. November 63. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad didn't give Malcolm some private instruction. Immediately upon news of the assassination, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had a communication sent out to every minister of the Nation of Islam. We are a structure. There's a lot of teachable moments in Malcolm, which is why Malcolm must be studied. We are a structure. None of us who are cogs in this structure, if you will, none of us are so great that we are more valuable than the structure. None. Every minister was given an immediate communication. Say nothing about the assassination of JFK. The country was mourning. JFK was the first Catholic president of this country. As far as we know, there were black Muslim inmates under the authority of Catholic correctional officers. It would be foolish for us to speak into the pain of a country mourning the loss of their beloved leader, to speak our truth into it. Truth out of season is a bad thing. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave every minister direct instruction, say nothing of, make no comment on the assassination of John F. Kennedy. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was scheduled to speak in New York. He canceled that speech, given what had just happened. Malcolm didn't like that. Malcolm impressed upon the messenger that we had invested so much money in this event. If you won't go, allow me to go and speak in your stead. The messenger gave him the okay, but the messenger reminded him. He said, okay, Malcolm, but remember, say nothing about the assassination of JFK. So look how it happened. So Malcolm arrives. Captain Joseph bars all of the press from the meeting. He didn't want he didn't want no problems. Don't start none, won't be none. So Captain Joseph barred all press. There were to be no press in that event. Malcolm had a particular New York Times journalist that, for some reason, he fancied. M.S. Handler. And then M.S. Handler was part of the FBI's COINTELPRO effort. M.S. Handler also wrote the foreword to the autobiography of Malcolm X, if I'm not mistaken. Malcolm X got word that M.S. Handler tried to come, and Captain Joseph turned him away with the rest of the press. Malcolm X got word of that, and he overturned Captain Joseph's decision on that. He allowed M.S. Handler to come in. Yeah, that was bad, bad, bad. Malcolm gets through his remarks, his prepared remarks, fine. And if there was no press in there, ooh, teachable moments, y'all. If there was no press in there, we likely wouldn't be having this particular discussion. And there was not to be any press in there. Malcolm made the decision to override his captain, to let this devil, M.S. Handler, in. And what happens? Malcolm gets through his remarks perfectly fine. He opens it up for question and answer, and here's that mischief-making devil. M.S. Handler is in there. M.S. Handler asks him about the assassination of JFK. Now, it can't be said Malcolm X was in the Valley of Decisions. No, he's in the structure. So there's only one decision. He was given explicit instructions on that matter. The instructions were, if asked about it, say no comment. Malcolm was asked about it, and I think it was M.S. Handler that asked the question. I gotta be fact-checked on that, but it was because he was there. It went out to the world what Malcolm said, and see, Malcolm ain't say what you said he said, but it ain't your fault. See, they sanitize. See, this is part of the fabricated Malcolm X. To romanticize Malcolm, as if Malcolm only said, you know, he just gave a cute and true political analysis, right? He said, chickens coming home to roost. America sent out violence. America killed other leaders of state. Now those chickens come home to roost. America's head of state is killed. A very sound political analysis, right? Who could be mad at that? Well, yeah, except he ain't stopped there. One, he should have never said that. Shouldn't have said anything other than no comment. He was in gross violation. Two, at least 2 times, 2 instructions. He's in gross violation. But he didn't stop there. He said, me being a farm boy and all, I'm never sad when the chickens come home to roost. In fact, I'm glad. And so when the MS handler, his boy, blasted it in the rest of the world, Black Muslim leader celebrates the assassination of JFK. They cannot be accused of doing violence to Malcolm X's comments. How else are you to interpret that? Being a farm boy and all, I'm never sad when the chickens come home to roost. In fact, I'm glad. So, why did Malcolm do that? He was wrong. I don't care how much you love him. We love him. But damn that. Damn your love. Oh, damn your emotion. He was wrong. He was wrong in December 62. He was wrong in November 63. He's wrong. And you cannot sweep that under the rug or refuse to consider that when you try to assess the relationship between Malcolm and the Nation of Islam as it will develop. Okay, so he violated at least two direct orders. He violated blatantly. He gets penalized, but his penalty is as much for his protection than his punishment. He's silenced for 90 days. He put on seed time, and this is important. These details matter.
Yeah.
That's a status in the Nation of Islam when you are guilty of a certain level of violation. You're put in seed time, which means you're not excommunicated from the body, but if you have a post, in particular, in his case, as a minister, he cannot mount the rostrum. He's not busted as a minister. He's still a minister, but he cannot mount the rostrum. He cannot speak publicly. He cannot conduct any interviews, critical. He cannot conduct any interviews. He's put on seat time.
And that's for 90 days, right?
For 90 days.
Okay.
We should not have seen any Malcolm, heard any Malcolm, but we did. We'll get to that. So this culminates in a very critical meeting. January 1964. January 1964, Malcolm is summoned to Phoenix. He has what in the Nation of Islam is called a hearing. Present there was the Supreme Captain of the Nation of Islam, Raymond Sharif, the National Secretary of the Nation of Islam, John Ali, and obviously the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The meeting was over certain antics of Malcolm in handling the messenger's domestic life. Malcolm, after leaving with from the messenger that first time, Malcolm gathered ministers and said things to them about the messenger's domestic life, and it got back to him. And in that meeting, January either 2nd or 6th. The dates are conflicted, but the FBI recorded it because the palace was bugged. In that meeting, the messenger confronts Malcolm about what he's doing out in the field now, undermining the messenger. And Malcolm X, y'all need to know this, Malcolm X confessed in that meeting to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that he had been lying on the messenger. He had been going around. Now, Malcolm put it on Wallace. Malcolm said, Wallace messed my head up. I'm sorry. He's begging for forgiveness, but he's acknowledging making mischief with what he knew of the messenger's domestic life. That's why I said, and it wasn't the 9 wives, he good, but there was that aspect that Malcolm never came to terms with. And because of that, Malcolm spent a year undercutting the messenger. It got back to the messenger at that hearing, January 2nd or 6th, 1964. Malcolm, in tears, admits to it, blames Wallace for it, begs for forgiveness. The messenger tells Malcolm, go put the fires out. So you started these fires. Go put the fires out. Malcolm leaves, and I'm going to put something on the record. I want to read something for us. Because again, this whole false narrative, Malcolm has this discovery and he's all messed up, got a conscience, a crisis of conscience, and then he leaves. Malcolm leaves that meeting after admitting, and Zach Kondo records that Malcolm admitted also to the Washington minister Lonnie X at the time that he had been lying on the messenger during that year. He's hurt. The messenger, he begs for forgiveness. The messenger tells him, go put out the fire. Malcolm writes a letter to the messenger. He happens to audio record this letter. I want to read the letter into the public record that Malcolm sent to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad after that January meeting. Gil Nobles played it on his show, the recording. Dear Holy Apostle, one of the main reasons people want to divide you and me is because they know that Allah has blessed me to be your best representative as well as your best defender. Again, keep in mind, since December, this is January 1964, he's known since December 1962 of the domestic life. He done taught to wives, he done taught to the messenger. That's old news now. The only ones here who might think I'm against you are those who are not with you themselves. This is a dangerous position to be in because it only adds division upon division. I know now how Isaac felt when Abraham took him upon the mountain to sacrifice him. Only love for his father made him submit to what looked like certain death. Abraham's faith in Allah was being tested, but Isaac's faith and obedience to Abraham was an integral part of the overall test. Malcolm considered himself a son of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, as Isaac was the son of Abraham. I know now, Malcolm goes on, how Job felt when everyone was looking at him wondering what sin he committed. His worst pain must have come from his inability to open his mouth and explain the real reason for his condition. As I've told you, I've been working on these notes I've taken during conversations with you during the past 10 years. Whenever I feel lonely, forsaken, or even angry, I go back to the words of wisdom and healing in these notes. There is both hope and life in your words. With Allah's help and your permission, I can turn out a book about your life, your teachings, and your work, and a program that would bring tears to your eyes and would not only go a long way in waking up the dead nation, but will also add to the financial needs of the nation. I do it just like I was working for you, but would actually ask nothing in return. I've received my pay from you already a millionfold. If you would have mercy on me and give me another chance, I'll stay out of the public. I'll be satisfied with just ministering in the mosque, making no public statements or outside speeches. Cassius Clay has offered me and my family a free expense-paid trip to Miami, Florida. Becomes critical. I have taken my family nowhere during the entire 6 years that we've been married. My wedding anniversary is January 19th, and I'm contemplating acceptance of this offer, which is a blessing in the honeymoon. Since I know what my status is, I will not go near the mosque nor the Muslims. May Allah bless you with strength during these dark hours, which I know are also a trial to you. All praises are due to Allah. Does that sound like a man who has a crisis of conscience regarding the morality of his messenger?
No.
No, because it's not. If you have questions, I will take.